Sean Payton to the Broncos. And this was a really interesting sequence of events. There were conflicting reports about who the Broncos were zeroing in on. D'Amico Ryans was seemingly a favorite of theirs, but he clearly wanted to take the Houston Texans job as the team that drafted him. I think he met his wife in Houston, so their family wants to go back there, and that was a big part of it. So D'Amico Ryans, I don't think was that seriously considering Denver, but there were people leaking things to the beat reporters trying to create the impression that D'Amico Ryans wanted to go to Denver. And I'm not sure if that was to up Houston's contract offer to ensure that he had 6 years so he wouldn't be yet another one and done coach for them. But regardless of the motivations, that ended up not being the case. And when you hear D'Amico Ryans speak about it, it was clear Houston was where he wanted to go. That left Sean Payton still out there, but the Denver Broncos without a head coach, and they finally pulled the trigger, traded a first-round pick and another pick, and then there was a pick swap later on in the draft for the rights to Sean Payton, have finally agreed on a contract extension slash basically new contract, I should say, with the Denver Broncos. And I did not think this was going to happen for a few reasons. All the reports indicated that Sean Payton wanted to be in a warm location, that was his preference. I think he was very, very much looking to the Los Angeles Chargers and getting to work with Justin Herbert. That seemed to have been his first choice, but they stupidly and cheaply hung on to Brandon Staley. So here we are. The Broncos got it done. And I don't think you can see this as anything but a win for the Denver Broncos, especially when you hear Sean Payton outside of his opening presser with Denver being asked about how he'll deal with Russell Wilson's entourage within the facility. And this is just like the kind of clout that Payton brings, and the ability to say no to a guy like Russell Wilson is going to be very good for the future of the Denver Broncos.
On the 30-second
Coach, Russell Wilson had a personal coach, Jake Hughes, in the building with access who wasn't on the staff.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that.
How do you feel about players having their own people off the staff in the building, access to players?
Yeah, that's foreign to me. That's not going to take place here. I mean, I'm unfamiliar with it, but our staff will be here, our players will be here, and that'll be it.
Coach, Sean.
Boom. So that's notable. I mean, a lot of the shenanigans that we saw going down last year with Russell Wilson will hopefully be eliminated. The fact that he had multiple, as was alluded to there, members of his outside team with offices in the facility. I think Russell Wilson had his own office as well. This is the kind of thing that does not fly with the rest of your football team if you're not performing. To my recollection, I'm pretty sure Brady in New England didn't have this kind of treatment.
Well,
the push and pull was with his trainer.
Yeah, with Alex
But he
Guerrero,
wasn't like,
not with
I need my
the coach.
videographer, I need
Yeah.
my, and hey, Russell Wilson, they appeased a lot of his biggest diva impulses, and they gave him that massive contract extension after giving up multiple first-round picks for him, after, trading away players as well, including Noah Fant and Drew Lock. Not that that was overwhelming, but they traded a lot for this guy, signed him to a contract extension before he'd ever played a regular season game, even though the reports coming out of training camp were not very good. We all saw how he performed. It was horrible. It was horrible. But the point is that if anyone can fix Russell Wilson, it's Sean Payton. And it's not just Sean Payton's offense and his ability to work with offensive players and craft game plans and strategy to their strengths. It's also what you saw right there. He's not going to take the bullshit. He has a Super Bowl ring, right? And he honestly, frankly, could have had more if Drew Brees' arm was not so weak at the end of his career. And Drew Brees struggled for a long period of time throwing outdoors. And I always will say that Drew Brees is a little bit overrated because the statistics look so good because of the offense that was set up for him by Sean Payton, regardless. He's worked with an undersized quarterback before. He's crafted an offense that fit to his strengths. And I could see this working with him and Russell Wilson, even though, my God, working with Russell Wilson sounds tough, but it seems like at the very least, Russ had a bit of a wake-up call and knows that he needs some help in how to play quarterback, and Sean Payton's the guy to do it.
Well, I also I agree. I think if the Broncos were going to give up some draft capital to do this, I think there are a few coaches that would be worth it in a hypothetical situation to do so for, and I think Peyton is one of them given their current roster construction. And especially with a guy like Russell Wilson who is, as you were saying, been completely accustomed to being accommodated in every request he might have because he is like the top of the food chain on the team that he's on. That wasn't the case this year. He was arguably one of the worst players on the Broncos this year.
Yeah.
And so that performance-based, clout does not follow when the performance is no longer there.
Yeah.
So the person who has the clout actually is going to be the Super Bowl champion, who has basically been a top-tier head coach or a top-tier coach, period, everywhere he's been, regardless of who he has been working with. So the person that's going to have the control there is Sean Payton, not Russell Wilson.
Right.
And I also think the ownership structure and the CEO of the Broncos will also relay that message, that the person in charge is not Russell Wilson, it is Sean Payton. And I think that is extremely important because Payton is going to be the one tasked with reorganizing this team to make it function and to maximize the strengths and opportunities and of the players on this team while also minimizing their limitations, which is something that Nathaniel Hackett was constitutionally incapable of doing.
And not to say anything of the other Payton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos, who George Payton, still I would say a lame duck general manager. This does not bode well for him, in my opinion, because Sean Payton is just going to take over the entire football operation.
Well, because George Payton, not to be confused with Sean Payton, George's Payton does not have a Y in it.
This is like Ryan Pace and Ryan Poles all over again.
Yeah, the Broncos are only going to hire Paytons now.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning, God. George Payton's two largest free agent or largest moves as the general manager of the Broncos were signing Russell Wilson, or
trading for him,
facilitating the Russell Wilson trade, and hiring Nathaniel Hackett. And so two, I would say, we could confidently say, so far, obviously the jury's still out on what will happen with Wilson now that Payton's a head coach, but so far, two calamitous failures for a new ownership group to shoulder with their GM that was grandfathered in. They didn't even hire George Payton. So I can totally agree with you in the sense that it could be that Payton is on borrowed time because of all of that, but I guess maybe he's sucked up enough to Greg Penner, the CEO of the team, and seemingly in Penner's statement a few months ago when they actually fired Hackett, they made it pretty clear that the new coach, whoever it might be, wouldn't report to George Payton. They'd report to Greg Penner.
Yeah.
So basically, I think what that is implying is the Waltons and me, we're actually the bosses.
Yeah.
Payton is a figurehead.
Exactly.
And that's how you're going to structure the team thereafter. So especially now knowing that with Payton in the fold, I think it also becomes even more clear that that is going to be the center of power, not Russell Wilson or even George Payton in terms of making front office making free agency acquisitions or trades, offensive scheme, whatever the case may be. So I don't think it's a hostile takeover, but I think it's what will be needed to give this team a much-needed jolt out of the mediocrity that they did not expect to be in.
Right. I agree. I do think that they went so hard for Russell Wilson. They were so aggressive in their pursuit of him in the trade. And I should say they clearly wanted Aaron Rodgers first, but I mean the trade assets that they gave up constituted an aggressive pursuit. They're stuck with him as much as they might want to redo that and change history. They have to get somebody who's going to maximize Russell Wilson because he's their largest asset. And this is not an asset that they can cut ties with. Like, they are stuck with him for at least the next 2 to 3 years. And so what they need is somebody who's going to make sure that he performs to the best of his abilities. And there's nobody who's going to be better at that than Sean Payton, in my opinion. It seems like they were a little reticent to give up draft capital for a head coach, which I can understand. But and so that's why they were pursuing Jim Harbaugh as well. But I don't really think it's close in between Harbaugh and Sean Payton. I would rather have Sean Payton any day of the week, and a late first round pick from the San Francisco 49ers seems totally sufficient for compensation.
Obviously, there is still time for this to change, but I do think it is interesting that after it seemed as if both Payton and Harbaugh were like out of the fold for head coaching consideration, that the one guy who actually required like pick compensation to hire got a job, and the other guy ultimately didn't.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to. I mean, and I would imagine George Payton, general manager, doesn't want to let go of that first round pick. But too bad, ownership superseded him. Go after Sean Payton, and they have the pockets to pay Sean Payton.
Absolutely.